So, ladies and gentlemen, this is another one of my series of political podcasts, and I think this is a response to some of the crazy notions that a lot of white Canada, or what they call conservative Canada, have been getting in their mind in recent months, and I think they need to have a scolding. There's a whole bunch of people across Canada that are claiming that Justin Trudeau is the worst prime minister in Canadian history, that it actually is a Muslim, that he's actually, I don't know what they think he is. Anyway, this rhetoric needs to be brought into task. Justin Trudeau may not be the best prime minister of all time. He might be considered maybe below average, C-, mediocre, whatever. He's made a lot of mistakes as a first-year prime minister. He's done all the kind of things that have pissed off a few people. But pissing off a few people because you're making decisions because you're in government doesn't make you the worst at anything. When people woke up the day after the election, or 7 o'clock in the morning, found out Trudeau won, some of the people were kind of surprised. They kind of forgot how badly Stephen Harper ran the country 10 years before. Justin Trudeau had the momentum of the old Liberals rising up with the new Liberals as well. There was a lot of promise. Again, any prime minister or president could, have some momentum. But Justin Trudeau has a lot of difficult files left over from the Mulroney, Chrétien, Martin, and Harper governments. Some bad decisions were made, especially in the Harper government, which is neither here nor there, because every government makes bad decisions. But when people are going on my podcast channel and, claiming he's a Muslim, like Justin Trudeau is a carpetbagger liberal. He's not a Muslim. If anything, he likes a little bit of power. He likes a little bit of prestige. Why in the hell would you run for prime minister if you didn't want power? You see, we have a weird combination of white Canada right now. You got some of the crackpot Western kind of combination of the old Reform Party and the Heritage Front, where believe that Trudeau does everything to pander to the East and doesn't care about the West. You got racists who don't like the fact that maybe that the Muslims and some minorities and women and gay and transgender all that are getting some rights, which his father worked on as a promise of the just society, and he's kind of continuing on his father's legacy like it never happened. He talked like there's been no constitution. Pound for pound, ladies and gentlemen, I've covered every prime minister in Canadian history. Stephen Harper was bad, but he wasn't the worst prime minister of all time. Jean Chrétien, far from the worst prime minister of all time. He saved the country. Now, remember this. Who was the worst prime minister of all time, ladies and gentlemen? Brian Mulroney. Brian Mulroney took a mandate in 1984 where the separatists were almost done in Quebec. He allowed the separatists to get more momentum. He almost destroyed the country with the Meech Lake and the bad decisions he did. Oka, the whole thing. It came to a point that Parizeau almost stole the election in 95. I was working for the Carleton Tribune in 1995, election night, having to cover the craziness that Mulroney left fester and Chrétien had to clear up on that famous weekend where he had the rally, that pro-Canada rally. Justin Trudeau's a lot of things. He's not there to please anybody. He's not there to suck up to anybody like any prime minister. But you see, Brian Mulroney was so self-egotistical as a carpetbagger. He allowed Canada to weaken from within by putting people in charge of his government that would later turned against him, including Lucien Bouchard, that allowed the separatists to rise in Quebec yet again. Now, if Trudeau was going to be voted out, which I predict, that's what the people want, that's fine. But don't go around and saying that Justin Trudeau is the worst prime minister of all time because you're so excited, you're right-wingers, you're all excited. Oh, Trump's in the States and it's our chance to take Canada back. Listen, you are not Canadians. Anybody that thinks they're better than anybody else is not a Canadian. In Canada, we have the left, we have the center, we have the right. We all have our different viewpoints. But if you think you're any better than anybody else, you're more American than Canadian, so don't let the door hit you on the ass. Go back to the States. Because that's where we were supposed to be born in the first place. My Canada is a diverse country. Okay? There's different political leanings, there's different people. I may not like the former core, the PNAB bunch, but if they want to vote for those people, that's fine. It's just an opinion. But again, show me the evidence that Trudeau is the worst Prime Minister of all time, or even comparable to Mulroney. Did any separatists rise up in Quebec in the last 3 years and say, oh, it's time for us to separate? No, that separation is brought in. There's no such thing as Alberta separatism, because they pretend they're going to separate. Sure, there's pipeline issues and all that, but I mean, that's in every government. There was so much corruption floating around the Mulroney government, and even with the Pierre Trudeau government on the several terms, there was all kind of different scandals going on. Everybody survived. But you see, Trudeau got 3 factors were working against him. He's a young man, he's nice looking, and basically he seems to be self-centered when it comes to his political decisions. Wow. What a surprise. A politician acting like a politician. If you don't like him, like I said in the previous podcast, vote him out. Again, don't wear no yellow jackets. Don't go on my my podcast feed and putting all crazy comments. Muslims, bullshit, whatever. You're losing it. You're not Canadian anyway, so don't even post. Just basically say to yourself, we want him out, vote him out. There's going to be no treason. How can you have treason when we don't even have American law? We're a Commonwealth country. To prove treason in any Commonwealth country, you need pretty much the guy going with a gun right to the palace or right to their House of Commons and overthrowing like something like 7 Days of May with Burt Lancaster and Frederick March, which was on TV this week, by the way, which reminded me that's why I'm doing this podcast. Is Trudeau the worst Prime Minister of all time? No. Is he the best Prime Minister of all time? No. He's a mediocre Prime Minister. He might improve, he might not, but he's mediocre right now. Just like Stephen Harper was mediocre, just like Joe Clark was mediocre, just like maybe Stanfield would have been if he won the election. If you don't like Trudeau, again the mantra, vote him out. You have the right as a Canadian. The veterans fought for the right for Canada to have a vote. But going on like an American and like something on a Fox News and a Sun Network, you're boring. You bore me to tears. The only reason I can do this podcast because I don't have to look you guys in the face, because I would look you in the face and see your ire against something, I would completely fall asleep. Like, imagine if people out west were in the room with somebody from New Brunswick and they're basically saying, there should be, you Maritimers should merge and you have no distinct society, and why is New Brunswick bilingual? They don't care about us. They've never been here. Canadians are basically whiners. We're all whiners from day one. But in this case, when you're whining to say that Justin Trudeau is the worst Prime Minister of all time, show me the evidence. There's a scale of 1 to 10, ladies and gentlemen. The words Brian Mulroney draw so much ire amongst media members like us who were born in the 60s because he made every day a living heck. The way the Oka file was mishandled, the separatists and all that. If René Lévesque was still alive, he'd probably say Mulroney was the worst Prime Minister of all time. Because Mulroney should never have been Prime Minister, because in 76 he had a chance for the leadership and he basically couldn't carpetbag enough to get it. And he finally did. Now, I hate to tell you this, by the way. You look in Canada right now, okay, Doug Ford got in, right? That's what Canada's all about. You wanted Doug Ford in, you got him in. So if you want a similar government in Canada with Stephen Harper, and Stephen Harper has the potential to be worse than Mulroney if he doesn't do it right, because he's basically kind of dropped the SNC-Lavalin affair, because they're not getting in the polls, ladies and gentlemen. He's kind of dropped the ball on that. Again, being a Canadian politician, it takes patience and all different levels to be a great one. But be mediocre is not hard to do, because we've had many mediocre prime ministers and premiers across Canadian history, and municipal leaders as well. Only a few are great. Pierre Trudeau was great. You have to admit that. Look what he did for New Brunswick. Whether you don't like it in southern New Brunswick or not, what he did it. He did it, and he rebuilt 3/4 of the province with these provincial leaders, Hatfield, Robichaud, all these leaders. So on this beautiful Thursday, where we have good weather coming in, 1st of April, this is not an April Fool. Is there any person out there who can prove to me, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the Prime Minister of Canada right now is the worst of all time? I want them to show me how he's worse than Brian Mulroney. That alone. Show me how to be worse than Brian Mulroney. If you can, I will give you $47 gajillion, you ignorant putzes. You got to stop going on my feed again and freaking out with posts. If this continues, I will put you 2 minutes in the penalty box. I'll give you your sookie, and then you can pout all you want. But as it stands right now, If you vote him out, he can't be the worst because you voted him out, right? 2 terms usually means the worst, and Mulroney was a prime example. So again, I respect the fact you have an opinion. How wrong it is, it's your level. You're very, very wrong, but again, you're entitled to it, and God bless you for it. Because that and 10 cents for you and me will get you bubble gum. Have a good day. Bye.